Nikki.
And I'm Jess.
She's the traumatized.
And she's the abandoned.
And
welcome
to
our podcast.
Where we talk about true crime, spooky things, and everything in between.
And today we are talking about some deadly history. Horrifying history.
Horrifying
I fucked
history.
up. Yeah.
That's fine.
I need more caffeine. Yeah, so how was your week?
It was pretty good. I went to my VA appointment.
Oh, yeah.
Got prescribed some medications. Got like a shocking thing, but...
All right, maybe I want to clarify. It's not
fine.
like terrifying,
Bad?
shocking.
I don't know. It's just weird. Is it bad? I don't know. Thyroid issues. Apparently my levels were extremely high. So getting put on medication, and I have appointment with radiology on Tuesday. So fun stuff.
Hopefully that just comes back normal, and then you're going to be put on the medication, and it's going to level you out, and you're going to be like, this is what normal people feel like.
I don't know what happened there. That's just, I don't know. Weird.
Yeah, very weird. Very
I don't know
strange.
if like the pregnancy like fucked up all of my hormones in some way or something, but yeah, like I don't know what causes it, what the issue is. I don't know. It's weird.
I mean, have you ever been tested for thyroid?
Well, obviously they tested it last year and I was normal.
Okay.
So
Weird.
I don't know.
Lily?
Weird.
What are you doing?
Lily? Gosh dang it. No.
Good thing you're cute. No, I'm just kidding. So cute. Little head on the top of the screen. Anyway. Okay, so appointment, anything fun? Anything?
No, I don't think so. My mom and stepdad got us a Echo Show, I think is what it's called.
Oh, yeah. That's exciting.
But so now they can call us on the little Echo and stuff. It's like a video chat, basically.
Aw, that's so cute.
How was your week?
It was good. It was good. Had a very relaxing weekend. Basically, the last week I was off 4 days. So it was very chill.
Nice.
Literally did nothing. Because we've been really busy for a long time. So it was like really nice to just literally do nothing. And got a surprise visit from my brother, the littlest brother, who is still here. Some quality time with him.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, that's really it. I'm really excited because this Saturday we're having a full-blown sibling game night. So Joe's going to be, and we're just going to have a sleepover. So we're literally going to have my middle brother, his wife, and nephew. And then littlest brother is also going to be here. So all of us are going to be sleeping under the same roof. It's going to be crazy and so much fun. We're going to be drinking.
Oh boy.
We'll see how I feel on Sunday. So I'm really excited about that. That's really it.
Nice.
Anyway, okay. Are you ready for fun fact of the day?
Fun fact of the day.
Fun fact of the day. Did you know that German chocolate cake was actually invented in Texas?
Oh.
The German part of the German chocolate cake actually comes from an American man, not a European country. Specifically, it was named after Sam German.
Oh. I always wondered why German chocolate cake had coconut on it when you don't really find coconut in Germany. So in 1852, he created a formula for mild dark baking chocolate for Baker's Chocolate Company, which subsequently named Baker's German's sweet chocolate, which is used in German chocolate cake. Interesting.
The more you know. I didn't know that either. I was like, why is it German chocolate cake? What makes it? I figured it was like German chocolate, and it is, but not the German the country. German the guy.
German the guy.
German the guy.
That's kind of relevant to my topic. My topic is named after a guy.
Oh, okay. Mine's in a European country, so like, sort of tied it. So kind of. All right. So what are you talking about today? I'm so excited.
I'm talking about the history of the guillotine.
Oh, guesses. It's named after the first guy it was used on, or named after the guy that created it. I don't know if I'd want to be known for naming a device that ended people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Huh. We'll find out in this little story here.
Tune in. Keep you guessing. All right. I'm ready.
Yeah, so like I not love, but the French Revolution has always held like a fascination for me, but it is a giant topic. So I had to just talk about it in pieces, bits and pieces. Executions weren't as they are today. In fact, most executions were public and very popular. The whole town would attend chalk it up to humanity's morbid curiosity with death. But today I will be talking about just one of the ways these public executions would be carried out, invented as a more humane way to do executions. The guillotine became quite popular during the French Revolution. So, what is a guillotine? A guillotine is an apparatus designed for carrying out executions by beheading. The device consists of a tall, upright frame with a weighted and angled plank suspended from the top. The condemned person is secured with a pillory at the bottom of the frame, and a pillory is like that device with holes in it where you put the head and the hands in it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
When you see like old prisoners in like old time movies,
For some
they're
reason,
like
I
in
thought
that.
they just put their head, but maybe I'm thinking like old school beheadings. Okay. All right. Yep.
And the pillory holds the position of the neck directly below the blade, and then the blade is released, forcefully decapitating the victim with a single clean pass. Humble beginnings.
Humble. The guillotine. Hold on. What?
So the guillotine obviously is best known for its use during the French Revolution. However, this is not the first time an instrument of this kind was used. There was the Halifax gibbet, and I did not look up these pronunciations, so my apologies. So the Halifax gibbet in England was a wooden structure consisting of two wooden uprights capped with a horizontal beam, a total height of 15 feet. The blade was actually an axe head weighing 7.7 pounds attached to the bottom of a massive wooden block that slid up and down in the grooves in the uprights. It is unknown when the Halifax gibbet was first used, but the first recorded execution dates from 1286.
Wow.
But official records were not maintained until 1538. So between 1538 and 1650, 56 men and women were recorded as having been decapitated.
And I wonder at what point it went from like having an executioner, because essentially that, like you said, that's an axe on it. So like I wonder if the executioners, there was just too many like accidents with it, or like where they didn't cut it off, and so they're like, we'll go with this. You know what I mean? Like I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wonder the difference. Yeah.
A rough number of executions identified since 1286 is just short of 100, and that's in England, or not England per se, but maybe I don't know. I get confused there. In the Holinshed's Chronicles, published in 1577, there was a picture of the execution of Murdoch Ballag near Merton in Ireland in 1307. So showing a similar execution machine, suggesting its early use in Ireland as well. Then there was the Maiden. The Maiden was constructed in 1564 during the reign of Mary, Queen of Scots, as a mean of execution in Edinburgh, Scotland, and was last used in 1716. So kind of that whole area had their own little situation going on with the guillotine-like machine. Yeah. Then the guillotine in France.
I wonder like how much poundage you would need to drop to cut the neck. And I, like as I was imagining that, it like gave me chills. I'm like, ooh. But you know what I mean? Like, do you go into that? Like how much you actually need?
So the blade was 7.7 pounds on the Halifax gibbet. The total weight of the guillotine is about 1,278 pounds.
Right.
The guillotine metal blade weighs about 88.2 pounds.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Okay.
And then the average height is 14 feet.
Yeah, I guess with that weight and then obviously gravity.
So the falling blade has a rate of speed about 21 feet per second.
Interesting.
So just the actual beheading takes 2/100ths of a second. And then the time for the guillotine blade to fall down to where it stops takes 70th of a second.
Okay.
So the whole process takes less than a second.
Okay. I mean, that's good.
I think it's Antoine Louis, a French surgeon and psychologist, is credited with designing the prototype for the first French guillotine and employing a German harpsichord maker named Tobias Schmidt to actually build it. and I didn't know what a harpsichord is. So it's basically a keyboard instrument where the strings are plucked rather than hit with a hammer. So think piano, but instead of like the little hammers inside hitting the strings, they're plucked somehow. My question is, how do you go from making a musical instrument to a killing machine? But
choice for sure. Yep.
Some sources say it was King Louis himself who recommended the device's immediate identifiable angled blade rather than the crescent shape of an axe.
Do we know why he liked the angle?
I don't
like, was
know.
one more efficient, or did it just look?
I think it's more efficient than the crescent shape one.
That makes sense, because you think about, I mean, this is morbid as fuck, but think about cutting like vegetables. You go at an angle.
Yeah.
But then you cut it. If you got a pizza, that's a circular one. But pizza's also softer. I feel like with the like you're cutting a carrot, you got to go at an angle.
Well, even that, like with a carrot, you like chop.
Yeah, but you chop like as an angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we're agreeing, and you're sounding like we're not agreeing.
Yeah. That's what I said.
All right. So, for a period of time, the device was actually called a louiette.
Ooh.
But in 1789, Joseph Guillotine, a physician turned politician, an opponent of the death penalty, proposed to the National Assembly, which is kind of like the government that formed after overthrowing the king, but proposed to the National Assembly that they should reform the way they conduct executions in general.
Interesting.
Because he's like, I don't like this, but if we're going to have this, maybe we should have some rules about it.
Okay.
So he outlined that criminals and their families have basic rights, like the property not being confiscated, and that the family could claim the body for burial if they wanted to. I'm summarizing what he wanted, by the way.
Wait, so you're saying they couldn't before? So they couldn't...
And then the government would just take all their possessions. So, yeah. He also proposed that no matter wealth or social rank, everyone convicted of a crime should be subject to the same punishment as before, where there's some other forms of execution that take longer and are very gruesome and painful. The wealthy could just pay for a hanging or pay for a beheading.
Wow.
They didn't have to suffer like the poor people.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I feel like the beheadings are the cheapest option here. What? It just takes a man to man it. Like, all you have to do is pull a rope. What were the other options? Do you know? Like, what? Like, electrocution wasn't a thing, right?
Have you ever heard of someone being literally pulled apart in 4 different directions?
Oh, yeah. But see, that takes horsepower. That was in bad taste. I'm sorry. It came out. I realized about halfway through Power it was inappropriate. I'm sorry.
I wasn't expecting that.
Sorry. We laugh through uncomfortable situations. That is what is happening. Yeah. So electrocution wasn't a thing though, right? It's too early for that.
No. Yes. So the wealthy could literally just pay for a less painful death, which is like
fucked.
I don't know. Yeah, like.
But I mean, it also happened everywhere because you think about it. I feel like that happened a lot even in the U.S. Like
this still happens to this day. I think
I agree.
Some people get away with some things because of some privilege. Anywho, so back to the proposals.
Yep.
Guillotine. I don't know if there's no E at the end of his name, so I think it's Guillotine instead of Guillotine, but maybe it's pronounced the same way. I'm not sure. But he then proposed a more humane way for the execution, stating the criminal shall be decapitated. This will be done solely by means of a simple mechanism, a machine that beheads painlessly. So he had the idea. He was an idea man. Is basically what they said. So Anton designed it. Tobias built the prototype after, this whole proposal thing came about.
Okay.
Then in March 1792, Anton presented his design to the National Assembly. The same month, the Assembly passed Guillotine's reforms into law. So they passed all of those proposals into law.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then they were shown this design. And the first execution with the guillotine took place on April 25th, 1792, on a highwayman, Nicholas Jacques Pelletier, in front of what is now the City Hall of Paris. Which brings us into a time period known as the Reign of Terror.
Oh, delightful. Sounds like fun.
Isn't it? The first person guillotined for his political views was Louis Colonna d'Ecremont on August 21st, 1792.
Okay.
So that's the first political execution.
Okay.
Which therefore afterwards comes the Reign of Terror, also known as just the Terror. It was a period of state-sanctioned violence and mass executions during the French Revolution.
Oh, there's the French Revolution that you wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Between September 5th, 1793 and July 27th, 1794, France's revolutionary government ordered the arrest and execution of thousands of people.
Oh, wow.
During the Reign of Terror between June 1793 and July 1794, about 17,000 people were guillotined.
I'm sorry, 17,000?
Yeah, and just in case you weren't following, that was a year.
A year. Yeah.
June 1793 and July 1794.
Fucking wild.
17,000 people were guillotined, including, obviously, the former King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette, who were executed at the guillotine in 1793. Towards the end of the terror in 1794, revolutionary leaders themselves, such as George Stanton and Maximilien Robespierre, were sent to the guillotine themselves. So, as you can imagine, just pure anarchy took over. Now, the entertainment of the guillotine.
Well, yeah, so what do you think? Do you think executions should be made public?
No. Like, thinking in today's society, because there obviously are still executions. No, I don't.
Right.
No. But like, imagine ourselves back when there was like nothing to do.
Right.
Like,
so like
besides work, because most poor people didn't know how to read or write. So all they do was work.
I just don't think I'd ever find myself going to watch somebody die. Like, even watching somebody die but that could also be very like empathic of me. Because even watching somebody get executed on a TV show or on a movie, I don't like it. It really makes me uncomfortable. Watching people fight makes me uncomfortable. Like physical, like I can't watch MMA or anything. So like I would never find myself at like execution.
I just don't understand it. Seth was watching UFC the other night because he was making bets on it. And I was just like, why do people watch this?
I can't watch
it's
literally
so
two grown
violent.
men or two women beat the shit out of each other. I can't do it.
I don't know. It's so weird. Anyways, for a time, obviously, executions by guillotine were a popular form of entertainment. At first, spectators were confused and disappointed by the guillotine. Basically, it was too quick.
See, that's fucked. Like, why do you want it to be longer? I don't understand.
Because it was like a theater process. It's how it's like described in many
of watching
like
someone
my sources.
die.
Yeah, like it was like theater. Like they would, like I said, like the whole wheel thing. They had first act and second act, and like
I just don't.
It was like it was entertainment back then. I don't know what else to say. But it didn't take long for the process to become high entertainment. They do. Basically, it evolved into an elaborate staging process.
What?
So, involving the procession with prisoners arriving in the square in an open cart, the mounting of the scaffold, the horizontal binding of the condemned to the plank, the vertical drop of the blade, the brandishing of the new separated head. So basically, typically the executioner, like you can see in the King Louis.
I thought that was like a dramatization.
No, they would hold up the head and
See,
present it to the crowd.
Oh God, I would never. I would never.
On top of that, the executioners won a great deal of notoriety and were judged on how quickly and precisely they could orchestrate multiple beheadings. They basically were celebrities. And executioners were like a family business. So let that sink in. If you inherited that.
Oh my God. Like, are there like amateur executioners who don't, is it like a bid thing where you don't really, you just get like the Scott and then you get promoted to execute higher ranking people? Like, I don't, ugh.
No, it's like a family business. And like, so they would be like celebrities as executioners, like worshipped. Yeah, the theater even extended to the condemned, so many people offered sarcastic quips or defiant last words as they were being executed, and others would like dance their way up the scaffold. I think one of the things that will shock you the most is the guillotine became a popular children's toy.
Oh my God, imagine kids running around with fucking nooses. Like, what?
Children often attended guillotine executions, and some may have even played with their own miniature guillotines at home. During the 1790s, a 2-foot tall replica blade and timbers was a popular toy in France. Kids used the fully operational guillotines to decapitate dolls, and there's even writings of them doing this to small rodents.
So basically you're raising like a group of fucking serial killers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, fuck rats, but they don't need beheading. I mean, isn't that what traps do? Anyway, we're not getting into that. Anyway, go ahead.
Rightly so. Some towns eventually banned them out of fear that they were a vicious influence. Shocking. But some novelty guillotines found their way onto some upper class dinner tables where they were used as bread and vegetable slicers. Can you imagine going to a fancy dinner and you want a slice of bread and they have a mini guillotine on the table?
I feel like that's a thing I've seen, but like as a joke, and these people aren't joking, and that concerns me.
Anywho, the last public guillotine in France was Eugene Weidman, who was convicted of 6 murders. He was beheaded on June 17th, 1939, outside the prison of Saint Pierre at Versailles. The reason why his was kind of like the last public execution, because there was a lot of secret cameras, as you can see, and they're like, it became too much of a
spectacle.
Yes,
I can understand why.
Marie-Louise Girard was one of the last women to be executed in France. She was convicted and guillotined for having performed 27 abortions in the Cherbourg area on July 30th, 1943.
Okay.
The guillotine remained the official method of execution in France until the death penalty was abolished in 1981. The final 3 guillotines in France before its abolition were those of child murderers Christian Ranucci and Jerome Carin in Douai. All of these are probably wrong.
It's okay.
And then torturer/murderer Hamida Jandobi in Marseille, and that was on September 10th, 1977.
Okay.
So the child murderers were, one was in 76 and one was in 77, and then the last one in total was in 1977. And Jandobi's death was the last time the guillotine was used for an execution by any government.
Wow, that's good to know.
One thing I didn't really know was that the guillotine was used in Germany. Obviously, the guillotine was used throughout Europe as an execution, but specifically, it was responsible for many deaths in Germany during the Third Reich.
Oh.
So the guillotine was used in Germany from the 19th century and up, like I said. But during 1933 and 1945, the guillotine was used to execute 16,500 prisoners.
16,000?
16,000.
Holy shit. And they made that a little bit too easy.
Yeah. 10,000 of them alone in 1944 and 1945. Crazy.
Fucking wild.
So some controversy about the guillotine. Ever since the guillotine's first use, there has been debate as to whether or not the guillotine provided a swift and painless death as the proposed guillotine had hoped. Does that make sense? The person guillotined had hoped. Okay. Certain eyewitnesses' accounts of the guillotine execution suggested that awareness may have persisted momentarily after decapitation, although there is no scientific consensus on the matter. But this would cause some gruesome experiments to be conducted, such as asking the head to blink or leave one eye open, yelling the deceased's name to see if it reacted, or exposing the heads to candle flames or ammonia for reaction. The ghastly experiments were obviously put to a stop, but studies on rats have since found that brain activity may continue for around 4 seconds after decapitation.
Oh my God.
Yeah, lovely way to end this story.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
First proposed as a more humane way to conduct death sentences, the guillotine would become quite infamous in relation to the French Revolution, but its lasting reputation and imagery still to this day provokes morbid fascination, as it was entirely at odds with what its intended purpose was. And that's the story of the guillotine.
I mean, very informational. Definitely learned a lot, but hated it. Hated every second of it.
You're welcome.
Mine's not about that much murder. Well, a lot of people die, but not like not by losing their head.
Yeah.
Thank you for that amazing horrifying. That is true horrifying history.
Welcome.
True horrifying history.
I aim to please.
Yes. I don't know about pleasing, but it was interesting. So I am going to be talking about the Great Smog of London. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, so I hadn't either, and this was like a really big deal. So we start on December 5th, 1952. The day started clear skies over London. It was a beautiful day. But a wintry cold front had been plaguing the British capital for weeks. So as Londoners woke up, obviously, they fired up their coal fireplaces in homes, businesses. I mean, the cold front had been there for a while, so they've been burning it more so than in the past.
So they used coal
for
fireplaces,
and we
wood?
will get there. Yes, they used coal. As the day progressed, a veil of fog actually crept into the city, but this was not unusual because the city is actually famous for its cool, misty winters. It has
obviously, yeah.
But this fog began to cover Big Ben, St. Paul's Cathedral, the London Bridge, other really city landmarks. Within a few hours, however, the fog began to turn a sickly shade of yellowish brown.
Ew.
As it mixed with thousands of tons of soot that was pumped into the air by now London's factories, chimneys, and automobiles. So smoky diesel-fueled buses had recently replaced the city's electric tram system, adding to the toxic atmosphere. Nonetheless, Londoners just went about their business with the typical, British, like, that's strange, but we're just going to keeping on. And tried to ignore the foul air as much as possible. But within the day, it became impossible to ignore this crisis. Public transportation actually ceased, apart from the London Underground. Obviously, it's underground. So much so that ambulance services stopped.
What?
Which actually ended up forcing people to transport themselves to the hospitals. But yeah, so they stopped ambulances, which I feel like is such a clusterfuck. But it was so bad that it was so thick they couldn't see. So
crazy.
And in the inner London suburbs, away from the town centers, there was no disturbance by moving traffic to thin out the dense fogs in the back streets. So it just got worse. Because you think about when you drive through fog, it kind of disperses a little bit and like separates.
Right.
It was so hard to see, nobody was driving, so it just continued to get worse.
That's crazy.
As a result, visibility could be down to a meter or so in the daytime. So you really could not see like a foot in front of you.
With 3 3 feet.
3 feet
in front of you.
Yeah, so you could not see 3 feet in front of you.
That's crazy.
Like, it started getting foggy, obviously, but you could not see. So imagine driving. And that was in the daytime. So walking outdoors became a matter of shuffling to kind of feel what was in front of you. People couldn't see curbs, so they would step off into a road without seeing the curb. And then once the sun set, it was made worse because the street lamps were fitted with incandescent light bulbs, which gave no penetrating light onto the pavement for pedestrians to see their feet.
So it was just like, you could probably just see like a little yellow
You could see there was a light, but it wasn't, doing anything to help them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So this is how like that perfect storm kind of created. So a period of unusual cold weather hit, and this led the people of London to burn much more coal than usual to keep themselves warm. Now, London found themselves exporting their good coal to pay off World War II debt. So they were literally shipping off whatever coal they had, they were shipping off to kind of pay off World War II debts. This resulted in them burning relatively low grade sulfurous coal, which was called nutty slack, which is interesting.
We know what sulfur does. We've had a couple stories involving sulfur before.
Which this increased the amount of sulfur dioxide in the smoke, which was then being released into the air. There were also numerous coal-fired electric power stations in the greater London area, including Fulham, Battersea, Bankside, Greenwich, West Ham, and Kingston upon the Thames, all of which added to this pollution. They were all using that same crappy coal. So, according to the UK's Met Office, the following pollutants were emitted each day during the smoggy period. So this is a daily account of how much pollution was added. 1,000 tons of smoke particles, 140 tons of hydrochloric acid, 14 tons of fluorine compounds, and 370 tons of sulfur dioxide, which could possibly be converted to 800 tons of sulfuric acid. And how that works is like the relatively large size of water droplets that the London fog usually allowed would produce sulfates, but this would produce it without the acidity of the liquid rising enough to stop the reaction. Therefore, this would result to dilute the acid to become concentrated when the fog was burned away by the sun. So it basically created sulfuric acid once the sun hit it.
That's crazy.
And people were breathing this in. Anyway, the presence of terry particles in the soot gave the smog its yellow-black color. Hence, this would be named a pea super.
Ew.
Yeah. So this type of smog had a nickname. It's called the pea super. Researchers suggest that additional pollution prevention systems that were at Battersea actually worsened the air quality. So flue gas washing reduced the temperature of the flue gases so they didn't rise, which is supposed because it's not so it doesn't go into the atmosphere. So you're reducing, right? But what that actually did was it made it slump down to ground level, which actually caused smog.
Wow.
So they're trying to prevent the pollution into the atmosphere. So they were like, okay, we're going to keep it close to the ground. What that ended up doing was.
Yeah.
So on December 4th, an anticyclone that settled over London with a high pressure weather system caused an inversion whereby cold air was trapped below the warmer high air, keeping everything at ground level. The emissions of factories and domestic fires could not be released into the atmosphere, so they remained trapped near ground level. The result was the worst pollution-based fog in the city's history. So the nauseous 30-mile wide air mass, teeming with acrid sulfur particles, reeked like rotten eggs, and it just continued to get worse every day because at this point nothing's dissipating it.
Right.
So the smog was so dense that some residents in sections of the city were unable to see their feet while they walked. So for 5 days, this stuck around. The Great Smog paralyzed London and crippled all transportation, except for obviously the London Underground.
So you had to go underground to get fresh air. Basically.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Crazy.
Because of poor visibility, boat traffic on the River Thames had to come to a halt. Like, literally stopped everything. Flights were grounded. Even some trains were canceled. Even during the middle of the day, drivers would turn on their headlights and hang out their heads from car windows to inch through the thick gloom. That is asking for a beheading.
Yeah. No, thank you.
No. Mm-mm. Many found the effort futile and simply abandoned their cars.
Yeah.
Conductors holding flashlights walked in front of the London's iconic double-decker buses to guide drivers down the city's streets. So they actually had like a person in front of them, like guiding them. And Matt, that's not safe either. That's terrifying. I think that's like one of the number one rules. If you're like in really super dense fog, you're never supposed to get out of your car. Ever. Like,
really?
If you get into like a car accident while there's fog, you are not supposed to get out of your car unless you have to.
Yikes.
Because you'll get hit. Like,
yeah.
Wheezing pedestrians had to feel their way around the city's neighborhoods and try not to slip on a greasy black ooze that started to cover the sidewalks. By the time they returned home, their faces and nostrils were blackened by the air. So Londoners started to resemble coal miners. Like when they blow their nose, you get like black soot.
Ew.
Authorities advised parents to keep their children home from school, partly from fear that they would get lost in the blinding smog. Looting, burglaries, and purse snatchings increased as emboldened criminals easily vanished into the darkness.
Obviously.
Weekend football games were canceled, although Oxford and Cambridge carried on with their annual cross-country competition at Wimbledon Common with the help of track marshals who continually shouted, this way, Oxford and Cambridge, as runners would materialize out of the thick haze.
How confused that would be if you heard this way, but then behind you this way, then like
where are you running to? You can't even see where you're running. Yeah. Like, you come around to somebody who's shouting. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So the smog actually seeped inside of buildings as well. The greasy grime started covering exposed surfaces, and movie theaters closed as the yellow haze had made it impossible for ticket holders to see the screen.
That's crazy.
Yep. Now some health effects that were going. The Great Smog of 1952 was much more than just a nuisance. It was extremely lethal, particularly for elderly, young children, and those with respiratory problems. I would be fucked. Heavy smokers were especially vulnerable because of their already impaired lungs, and smoking was very common among that time, especially among men.
Yes.
Deaths from bronchitis and pneumonia increased more than 7-fold. The death rate in London's East End increased 9-fold. Initial reports estimated 4,000 died prematurely in the imminent aftermath of the smog.
Wow.
The detrimental effects lingered, however, and death rates remained well above normal into the summer of 1953. Many experts now estimate the Great Smog claimed at least 8,000 lives, perhaps as many as 12,000.
Wow.
The effects of the big smog weren't also limited to people. Birds lost in the fog would also crash into buildings. It was a massive problem.
Aren't like animals supposed to have like an instinct to stay away from?
I think so, but this wasn't necessarily, this wasn't like created by nature. This was human made, so I think it fucked with them. 11 prize cows brought to Earl's Court for the famed Smithfield show choked to death, and breeders fashioned improvised gas masks for the rest of their cattle by soaking grain sacks in whiskey.
So instead they just made all their cows drunk.
Basically, yeah. But I think the idea of it is like you're supposed to wet a rag and put it over your face and it helps get those particles, but I don't understand the idea of whiskey.
Yeah.
I mean,
interesting.
we are in London, so.
Okay.
The aftermath. Initially, the British government was slow to act during the Great Smog. Heavy fog was, after all, very common, so like they're like, oh, it's just a normal smog event. It wasn't until like shit started getting really bad. They're like, I don't think this is normal. But following a government investigation, Parliament passed the Clean Air Act of 1956, which restricted the burning of coal in urban areas and authorized local councils to set up smoke-free zones.
So how did they get rid of the smog? They just let it go?
It has to just the weather moved, because basically there was just a high pressure system holding everything in place, and so I think after once that like alleviated the smog and so people started to drive, which then dissipated it. I mean, it's just like any fog, like it just starts to kind of fall apart. The only issue was the weather was fucking with it too, and there was a huge increase of the pollutants. But if people can't go to work,
right,
there's less pollutants.
Okay.
Homeowners homeowners received grants to convert from coal to alternative heating systems. So now we're going to wood, because even though wood does create smoke, it's cleaner smoke. It's like a cleaner soot or whatever. The transition away from coal as the city's primary heating source towards gas, oil, and electricity took years. And during that time, deadly fogs periodically occurred, such as the one that killed about 750 people in the year 1962. But again, it wasn't as bad as this one because they had made precautions, but they at least were trying to,
Yeah.
Obviously, none of them, however, approached the scale of the 1952 Great Smog. So just some fun tidbits here just to kind of liven the mood up a little bit after our really cheerful episode. The Great Smog is actually the central focus of season 1, episode 4 of the Netflix's The Crown. You guys ever seen that? The portrayal of the event was regarded as reasonable, accurate by the critics, although the political importance and the chaos in the hospitals were thought to be greatly exaggerated. But the actual event in the show was pretty accurate, is what they said. An episode of The Goon Show entitled Forog, broadcast on the BBC Home Service 21 in December 1954, was a thinly veiled satire on the killer frog crisis. Killer frog. The script by Eric Sykes and Spike Milligan concerned the statues of London's monuments who could get up and move about the city, disturbed only at times when it was enveloped by the characteristic smog. Government-sponsored scientific research sought to dispense the choking fog to the annoyance of the statues. And then the D.E. Stevenson novel The Tall Stranger opens with dense fog that penetrates indoors, endangers hospital patients, and is an apparent reference to the 1952 smog. And then there was also another book, Death in the Air, that came out in 2017 that interweaves the story of the Great Smog in London with that of a serial killer, John Christie. So basically he used the killer smog to like murder people. That was a book. Yeah. Right. But yeah, it's very popular in literature. I had never heard of it, but it was a thing. I feel like if it had happened in our history, I think we talked about this before. The U.S. educational system is very narcissistic. we only learn about
name a government.
It's not. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
I mean, like, I think it's upon the individual to have interests outside of your own country.
And I think, honestly, if you look through our podcast episodes, I feel like we do a really good job of, like, we don't really do a whole lot in the country. I think we're very interested in the whole big wide world. Anyway, that's it for this episode. If you enjoy the podcast, don't forget to follow us. Leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Hi. Like and subscribe. We have 61 subscribers. I don't know when that happened. I feel like the last time I looked, we had 50. So that's exciting. Hello. Welcome. Are you still here? You should comment and say hello.
You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with our username at TTA Podcast. And the bio of all of our social media is our link tree, which has our email. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, any topic ideas you want us to cover, hit us up. Let us know. That's our goal. I want to do a whole like listeners episode, guys. So we need you to reach out and let us know what you're interested in so we can. Thanks for listening, guys. Next week we are doing myths, legends, and mythical creatures. Let's go. I have no idea what I'm doing. No clue. Are we supposed to do a true crime?
No.
Or no?
We already did that. We did Gypsy Rose last week.
Oh, we did. Wow. My brain.
Where were you?
Obviously not here.
We just did. Yes, we did. We just did true crime. Yep. Myths, legends, mythical creatures, and then unsolved mysteries after that. And with that, we'll leave you with this inspirational quote.
Strength doesn't come from what you can do. It comes from overcoming the things you once thought you couldn't. By Ricky Rogers.
It's a really good one. I like that a lot. It's a good one. So thanks for listening again, guys.
Until next time. Bye.